and urging me to believe that there's going to be some rain. It has been happening all week. What has this overcast sky, but still no rain? What's happening in our weather?
Well, the whole atmosphere continues to transition to our summer months type weather conditions, and it continues to be rather warm. I'm outside right now, sitting on the outside, taking in the nice fresh breeze, and it's not as cloudy over this area. It's nice and blue over here. We had copious amount of sunshine, and the warm temperatures continue. So in terms of weather conditions for today, it was pretty nice, pretty tropical, I must add. Nothing outside of the extraordinary. Yes, we continue to see sometimes it becomes a little bit cloudy, but albeit it's the level of moisture, and we do not have any supporting mechanisms to really trigger the rainfall. So high pressure being around, that does keep things nice and stable. So even though you see sometimes the clouds build up in themselves, they're not necessarily deep and they do not have the necessary moisture to yield rainfall. So it's one of those days where the clouds were, yeah, you see the clouds, but again, the atmospheric moisture, the moisture content of the atmosphere continues to be rather low, and hence the reason why we're not seeing the type of rainfall that we would normally have at this time.
So from your meteorological standpoint, what is the outlook for today, the rest of the evening into tomorrow, all day?
Okay, so
just before you give us our local update, we spoke about Christabel yesterday. What's been happening to Christabel?
Okay, Christabel, well, since last night, Christabel increased in intensity. It moved from 40 miles per hour and got up as high as 60 miles per hour today. When an Air Force reconnaissance hurricane plane visited it, it found it slightly stronger, and so as such, it was slightly stronger, and it was offshore at that time. Well, since this morning, it drifted southwards or southeasterly, and it moved ashore, and it went ashore on the Gulf of Mexico, right down at the southern parts there, and it brought some very strong winds over at the southern Gulf of Mexico. But the winds are not necessarily real impacts here. What is the real impact that they're looking at is the amount of rainfall that this system is likely to bring over Nicaragua and those areas in the Central American continent. And we are looking at copious amount of rain. Some places are likely to receive as high as 23 inches of rain. And that is serious rain, that is flooding rain, that is life-threatening rain because of the landslides and the mudslides and the flash flooding and the urban flooding and the macro scale flooding that can take place. It truly can lend itself in as what we call a disastrous situation, not necessarily looking at the winds only, but the amount of rain that is likely to fall out of it. Yeah, your mic.
We could do well with some of that rain.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. Tell me about if we can do well with some of those rainfall. That's nearly half our annual rainfall in one day. But I must add that we can do well with some of it, but not all of it at once, given the fact that that rainfall there could be life-threatening. So we would really want to manage the amount of rainfall that we receive and not let it reach to the level of life-threatening flash floodings and life-threatening issues to present to the people. Yeah, what we're looking at right there is the cloud shield associated with Cristobal. Cristobal is actually, the center is located more in the southern end of the picture. And as you could see, there is a turning down there. It's a spinning, there's a cyclonic turn down there. The center is located within that cloud mass, and that cloud mass continues to drift towards the south and is not moving much at all. And that's the danger about it. So it's basically just drifting, sitting right there, dumping all of this amount of rainfall on the South American areas and the South American islands, or the continent, and it's really creating a havoc. The next couple of days will be in an interesting scenario. Let's move on to the next slide so we can show the folks where what is likely to take place in the next couple of days with respect to it. Well, the next couple of days, the National Hurricane Center suggests that we are likely to see it meandering over that general location, moving up the coast of Belize out into the central Gulf on its way to Alabama. So we're looking at it moving up. Look at where it's likely to be the 1 p.m. Saturday. And then look at where it's likely to be 1 p.m. Sunday, and look at where it's likely to be 1 p.m. Monday. But I must add that as it moves towards the north, that cone that you're seeing, that white dotty area, suggests to us that the center can be located someplace in that vicinity. It could be over Mississippi, or it could be over in the eastern parts of Texas. So I would not necessarily want folks who have relatives in Louisiana area to focus that it's headed for Louisiana, even though it can be so. It also can show up itself someplace to the east or someplace to the west, and as such, but someplace on the Gulf states, we are likely to see the storm entering back into the Gulf, finding some favorable conditions, with the winds increasing even more up to about 50, 60 miles an hour again on its way to the Gulf state, the southern Gulf states.
So that is it for Cristobal.
That is it for Cristobal. That is it for Cristobal. We continue to monitor it because it will change again in the next 24 hours. So we would not want to put all our time and effort into this, really. Just to monitor it. It's not going to be an impact to us in Antigua. I must let you know. It's not going to be an impact here in Antigua. However, the cloud shield can reach as high as far east as Cuba. So Cuba can get some more drenching rainfall, and to a lesser extent, Jamaica also.
Okay, so I know that you have been monitoring what's happening in the Atlantic as well. There are no developments, nothing for us to worry about.
Nothing for us to worry about. Right now, the Atlantic continues to be rather quiet. I must add that the month of June is not necessarily the Atlantic's time. The month of June is for the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf of Mexico, and the eastern seaboard. Those areas climatologically normally see storms in the month of June. When we get into July, we will start to see the likelihood of storm formation just east of the islands and the rest of the west of the hurricane season. Then we see it going out to Africa. But for right now, the rest of the Atlantic Ocean, which is from Antigua and the Eastern Caribbean eastwards to Africa, it's rather quiet right now. There's nothing for us to necessarily worry ourselves about. So we can breathe a little bit more freer. We can take some time, but I might add that this is your time to also prepare for the likelihood of a storm in the latter parts of the year, going on into August and September. And this is your time for you to actually stay on board, listen to these updates, and to get yourself prepared so that as you monitor, you will know exactly what you should expect and what you should do in the event of a storm.
So what's happening with our neck of the woods now?
In terms of the Eastern Caribbean, nothing much to talk about in context of the weather. If you take a look right out to Africa, what I can tell you is that the Atlantic sea surface temperatures, they are quite warm for this time. We are looking at the fact that the warm sea surface temperatures presents what you call high oceanic heat content. And that heat sometimes can translate into ready available energy for the storms. So even though we are not seeing the storms themselves forming in the open Atlantic, we are very mindful that the waters are getting themselves warm. Why aren't we not necessarily seeing so much of the storm formation in the Eastern Atlantic at this time? It has to do more with the atmosphere. The atmosphere is not necessarily lending itself to the formation of these systems because they're still present in the atmosphere, deep upper level shear. And the tropical waves, they are rather weak. And the atmosphere across the Atlantic is rather dry. So in putting all of that together, the environment is not necessarily favorable for storm formation at this time. And it can stay that way. It can stay that way. But as we go out in time, the moisture levels will increase. The atmosphere will become a little bit more ready to sustain these things. And we will see tropical waves, some stronger tropical waves, move off the coast of Africa and find favorable areas for them to develop. So hence the reason why we are going to be keeping our eyes very, very keenly on the open Atlantic from here on in. Yes, Mike?
Any advice for the listening public as we go another day into the hurricane season? This is our third day. 3 named storms, still what?
Third day, yeah. Brother Joe, let me have a real concerted effort to really speak to our people about what is preparedness. Why prepare? Why prepare? Let's talk about the preparedness from a geological standpoint. The geographical location of Antigua and Barbuda is one in which we are susceptible to what we call multi-hazard events, such as hurricanes. When I say multi-hazard events, I mean events that can bring flooding rainfall, that can bring intense lightning and storms, that can bring rough sea swells, etc., that can bring high winds. When we put all those together, one event can come with all those. We call those multi-hazard events. And why is it that we need to prepare? Is the fact that because we are located where we are located, we wish that we can just take up Antigua and put Antigua into a safe zone. Well, all of that is just wishful thinking. We are not able to move Antigua, but we are living on Antigua. Therefore, we are exposed to these multi-hazard events. Your life matters. So preparation begins with you. You need to take stock of the fact that because we are located where we are located, and the fact that these multi-hazard events can take lives, we need to prepare to do what is necessary so that in the event the storm comes by or these multi-hazard events come by, we can deal with them to sustain life and that life can go on. So the first aspect of preparation begins with you. You got to take it seriously. You got to know why is it that you need to take it seriously, because your life matters. And that's what I really want to leave with individuals for today. As we go forward in the next couple of days, I will pitch to you a little bit more deeper into the level of preparedness. But the first aspect of the preparation begins with you. Get yourself knowledgeable about storms. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow in the context of knowing your hazards. What are those hazards? What do they come with? We're going to have some real life experiences. We're going to talk about those, and we can develop our thrust towards the deeper aspect of preparedness out in time. But for right now, take some time to understand that preparedness is all about the individual. Because if no individual was here on Antigua and storms passed by here, it wouldn't really matter. But because there are lives to save, there are lives to spare, we have to take it seriously to save lives. That picture that you're looking at right now is the open Atlantic from Antigua right across to Africa. That dark line that you're seeing coming across is what we call the termination line between night and the day. So right now in Africa is right now night. Soon,
Okay.
the next couple of hours or so, that termination black line will be over us, meaning that we will see night in our vicinity. So the Atlantic continues to be rather quiet. There are one or two tropical waves, but those tropical waves are not necessarily developing because the atmosphere is not necessarily right for the development at this time.
Well, I must say we are having good news. Good news for us, not the best news for the Gulf of Mexico with 3 named storms, all having their origin in that area. But we're happy that none have visited us so far. And we wanted to keep that way for the rest of the season.
That's all true. I had a friend of mine today who said to me, Brother Joe, 3 named storms. I said, listen here, you can have them counting. They can go up to 1 million. And so long as they remain over the open waters and don't impact lives on land, then that's okay. But
Absolutely.
we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared in the event that one comes on shore.
Okay, so I want to thank you again today for our weather update. Truly, it's getting better and better every day, and I know that it will become more exciting. One of the things, even though many people harbor fear when it comes to the hurricane season, one of the things you can be sure of is that many people are glued to their phones, their television, and their radios because they want to be informed, to know what's happening out there. Hence the reason why we are on this program every afternoon, to make sure that they can get some comfort, some peace of mind, and they can sleep well. May God
That's
continue
right.
to bless them, and we thank you again for your service this afternoon.
That's not a problem. And I see you tomorrow.
Okay, then take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.